So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. So today we have the speaker with us, Rivelino Montenegro. So Rivelino is a serial entrepreneur, inventor, and sought-after international speaker, book author, and expert in medical devices, material science, biomimetics, and nanotechnology. He's also the co-founder and manager of several Canadian and German biomedical companies. He co-invented and marketed products in the fields of neurology and dermatology. And Rivelino has a PhD in chemistry from the Max Planck Institute in Germany. So thank you, Rivelino, for being here today with us and sharing your experience and knowledge in the field of entrepreneurship. And I leave the floor to you. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Tamer. And I don't know exactly how should I get started? I mean, should I explain a little bit of my story and you guys jump into questions? Is that how we are meant to be? Okay.
Yes, please. Then if everyone has questions, feel free to write in the chat or raise the hands and we will manage it. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I'm originally from Brazil, and in Brazil I studied material science and engineering. Then I did a master's in chemistry, but before I did a master's, I worked as an engineer in the industry, in the plastic industry. I hated, was the worst time of my life. Like Sunday night, I would not sleep well, knowing that Monday morning I would have to go to the company. It was a horrible time. That's when I left the company to go back to university to do my master, and I wanted to do my PhD. I wanted to become a professor, actually. Then I moved to Germany to do my PhD in chemistry, after applying everywhere in the world, and by chance someone in Germany called me, and then I ended up coming to Germany. I did my PhD, and that was like developing nanoparticles, and most of the work was on electronics. So, and we're talking about 24 years ago, right? I'm 50 years old, by the way. So, but I was working back then developing nanoparticles for those the screens that you see today bending and all this, like I was doing back then. But part of my PhD could be used in medicine. That's when I moved to Toronto to do my postdoc, developing technologies to heal the spinal cord. The initial work was on the encapsulation of drugs to be delivered to the spinal cord. And after some time at the University of Toronto, I joined a startup from my back then professor. That's when I entered the world of so that's how I entered the world of startups. So I left the startup to start my own and developing technologies for brain aneurysm. We developed 2 products back then in Toronto, and nobody believed in our idea. So we found no investors. So I lost everything. I lost everything. When I say everything, it's everything. Even my wife left me back then. So it was everything. And then I was living in a house of a friend for 1 year because I couldn't get a job. So my business partner back then was a German. He came back to Germany, and based on another idea we had back then for urology, so no longer in the neurology, we went to urology. He found an investor in Germany who would be willing to invest. And I moved back to Germany in 2006, started one company. We developed few technologies, including nerve grafts. So we were the first chitosan-based nerve graft in the market, both in the US and in Europe. Then in 2016, I left the company. We also brought products for the chronic wounds. Then 2016, I left the company to start another one. That's how I got in contact with Fast Track and all the work that they do in Portugal, because they became the major investor in a company in Switzerland that we started in Switzerland to repair the nerves around the prostate once the prostate is removed. And I used to tell everyone I was working in the sex industry, because the major work was to give men back the potency after the surgery. So it's very easy to sell the product, because it's like that. You go to the surgery, you come out of the surgery impotent. But if you buy our product and you implant, so 3 months later, you are potent again. So most men would buy 2 pieces just to be on the safe side. But Corona hit us and all the surgeries were canceled. So when we got the approval from the US to start selling there, the clearance from the FDA, Corona hit us and made us change a little bit the plans. So we entered an agreement with a US company that is selling the product right now in the US, but for other application mostly. They are selling for the repair of the nerves in the hands. And the reason is purely financial, because in the hands, the health insurance covers the product. But in the prostate, the health insurance does not cover because it's a very new product. So we are hoping that very soon they will be able to get the insurance reimbursement as well in this field, that they could start selling this area. So meanwhile, after that exit, I started another company in the Netherlands where we developed a wheelchair, a fully mechanical wheelchair that you can stand up, and we are bringing to market between May and June this year. And I also have another startup in the US where we developed a spray to stop severe bleeding. And this product just got the market now, and we, for example, we deliver to the Ukraine, and there are soldiers being saved there right now during the war in the Ukraine. And we are starting to sell in the US. We are closing some deals with the US distributors, and the company is based in the US. So that's my story in like 9 minutes. And if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them.
I don't think there is any specific question up to now, but maybe Rivelino, you can talk a little bit about your the collaboration that you have with the universities and how the universities research teams help you and your colleagues with the development of the startups, the different startups that you mentioned.
Okay, so the first example I will give is the one of Monarch Bioimplants. That's the one the Fast Track invested. We developed the product together with the University of Torino in Italy. They were the first to do a clinical trial with the product in urology. So they used that for the patients that were going through a radical prostatectomy, which is the full removal of the prostate. So we met the people there. They have an office where they have all the patents submitted or covered. So we got in a deal with the University of Torino that we licensed their patent. We brought to the company. They did the clinical trials, and this was extremely important because as a startup, we didn't have enough money to do a clinical trial. Clinical trials are extremely expensive, especially in this case, in the surgery, where the surgeries are done by robots, like the Da Vinci robot. We're talking about a massive amount of money. And the University of Torino did this at no cost for the company. So that was extremely important because we wouldn't be able to do it. So what we did quite well that the University of Torino wouldn't be able to do is the whole process of getting the approval and setting up all the quality system and getting the production done, because universities are mostly for development, for invention, for creation. And quality system is a super boring type of work and extremely tedious with a lot of documentation, as well as setting up the production with a contract manufacturer. So the work went very well. I mean, we were super happy with the University of Torino and the work that they provided, all the help with patents and everything. Everything was like done with them. The second strong experience that I had was this recent one with the wheelchair that we developed. We developed together with the University of Twente in the Netherlands, in the city of Enschede. So in there, when I had the idea to develop this, I talked to this guy who was finishing his master's. He's a mechanical engineer. He was finishing his master's at the University of Twente. And I invited him to start the company. So because he was still inside the university gave us fully support. I'm talking about from being able to help us 3D print parts to, for example, the university selected us for meetings in different events where we would be able to go and present our idea, and we won several prizes out of this. The University of Twente also brought us in contact with a lot of different consultants that could help us to understand the market in the Netherlands, because as crazy as it may sound, Netherlands is neighbor to Germany, but a health insurance, it's completely different. I had no clue how complicated the thing would be. And the University of Twente helped us to also set up meetings. So, and we still have the office at the University of Twente. Our office is still there. It's a sort of an incubator that the university has. The university helped us also to get the word out, like through newsletters, interviews, and podcasts. And the University of Twente also selected us and sent us, they cover even all the costs. They sent us to one of the biggest startup event in Finland, the Slash event in Finland, in Helsinki, where we could go and meet investors, potential distributors. So I mean, my experience in these two specific cases, one with the University of Turin in Italy, and the other one with the University of Twente in the Netherlands, have been fascinating. I mean, I'm super happy with what happened so far in our collaboration. We had fully support. In both cases, the universities had created an environment to support startups. I don't know how is it your university, guys, but at least these two experiences have been, they are extremely positive. That's what I can say about this.
Rivelino, thank you very much for coming and talking today. I had two questions, I guess, which are slightly more business led.
Yeah.
So I'll ask both and you can answer in whatever order you like, I guess. But so the first one was related to your first startup, where you said that you couldn't get investment there, lost everything. I'd be interested to know why you think that was unsuccessful, and what you sort of learned and changed for your future startups. And then I guess a similar-ish, with your startup that was focused on the prostate, when Corona hit and stopped your ability to sell that application, how did you go about the process of reimagining your business model, I guess, and looking for future applications?
Okay, Rory, let me try to answer the first one. I would say our biggest issue with my first startup in Canada, why we didn't raise money. Remember, that was 2005, 2006. The VC environment for biotech was not very developed in Canada. It was something quite new. And although most people don't know, but Canada, it's still very focused on raw materials. We all think that Canada is very focused on new technology, but because of you have BlackBerry, that was a super success story of Canada, but it was exception. So the VC scene, I would say, was not prepared for this. And the volume of money that was invested in Canada that year was quite small. And I think that was the major issue, trying to convince an environment that was not used to do it, to invest massively in biotech. Maybe we could have had a better chance. We could have had a better chance in the US if the company would be in the US. But we also tried to find investors in the US, and it didn't work. So today, long story short, I think that was the major problem. The VC was not very, very strong, was not very hot. Just to give an impression, there were maybe in Canada VCs that we talked to, maybe 2 or 3. All others were like normal banks that they had some sort of investment, but it was really underdeveloped. So that was our issue. So I think that was the biggest problem. But just to give you a little bit of more meat to this story, to this dish, 3 years later, a US company developed the same product for brain aneurysm. And it was, I don't know how they got a patent, because it was exactly the same as our patent that we lost. We lost the patent because we didn't have money to continue the payments. So, and they sold their company for $72 million. So I have no clue how they were able to go around our patent, but of course, this is all possible. But it's just to give an impression. The idea was not stupid. So it has nothing to do with the idea in itself. It was the moment, the place. And, you know, we can never take one thing in account, which is called luck. I mean, you can be the most industrious guy, you can be the most intelligent guy, but you need a little bit of luck. If not, it won't work. It's unfortunately like that. I think that was the reason. And in Canada, there were not many like state-sponsored programs for innovation. There were very, very few. It was really bad. So I think that was the reason. And concerning the model, the change, and what we did with Monarch bioimplants for the prostate cancer. Imagine the situation. The whole business was just at a halt. There was nothing working, and we were like, what can we do now, right? So we started looking for companies, and luckily, again, luck, this company contacted us because they had one technology. The company is called Checkpoint Surgical is the company. They have one technology to measure nerve functionality during surgery. So you're doing surgery, it's all red because it's all bloody, and you want to know if that nerve is still active or not. So they have some sort of a pen that you touch and you get a signal, right? So they wanted to enter in the nerve repair as well, not only diagnosing, but they wanted to repair the nerves. They were looking for technology. And that was exactly the time we were looking for someone and they showed up. So it was luck. If it wouldn't be that, we would have a bigger problem. So I would say it was not only our hard work, it was a bit of luck in this case. And we got a chance. We either do this or we find another investor to raise more money, but it was very complicated time. 2020 was hard. It was very hard for any company in this field. So I don't have a beautiful story to tell you how we sat together. Hey guys, let's change business model. Let's brainstorm. And this guy showed up. Hey, I'm interested. And we too, come, let's talk. That's how it happened. Tamar, I think you raised, Tamer, sorry, you raised your hand.
Yes, actually, I have 3 questions or so. Should I show it once or question by question?
No, feel free.
Yeah. So actually, it's a follow-up of Rory question about the failing of the first startup. But here I would like to ask you why you, after failing and you lost a lot of things, even your family and your wife and so on, why you decide to go for the second one? Why you didn't decide to go for
that's a good
PhD or
that's a good
academia?
point. Let me tell you this. When my friend from Germany, when my German friend called me and said, "Come back," I got money here from an investor that we can start another startup. That same week, I got an offer to work for a Canadian company, to work as an engineer in a Canadian company. I was in the interview with the guy, with the CEO of the company, and he was already talking to me about how can we start, when can we start working. And then I asked him, "Have you ever failed in your life? Have you ever bankrupted?" And he said, "Are you kidding? 6 times. My mom had to help me many times." And I said, "Okay, man, it was my first failure. I will try again." That's why I moved. It was during the job interview that was everything ready. So I said, I would take, and also because I was not excited to do that. I wanted to do something in the biomedical. I didn't want to work for this company making plastic pieces of bottles for McDonald's and Coca-Cola. So I said to myself, you know what, I'll try again. And the problem is in the startup world, and it's kind of an infection. You get infected with that. it is so much adrenaline. And the problem, if I try to get a normal job today, nobody will give to me because they think the moment I have money, I will quit the job and start another company. So I'm in a situation that it doesn't work anymore. I have to keep rolling. But I can tell you, it's super exciting. I mean, developing something, bringing to market and seeing the effect. Like I got this video from this lady in the Ukraine talking about our products, saying, hey, I need more of this. We need this for our soldiers. That was fascinating. So that was really, and that's why I'm there. That's why I got infected with the virus.
Yep. I have another question, actually two questions, but maybe I reflect on this point that you highlighted now. I had an interview like 6 months ago or so with a businessman who work actually here in Norway, but he is from Africa. And he show or tell me the same story, almost the same story. His first company, his first startup, he invest like 200,000 euro, and then he lose all the 200,000 simply because of some issue, because he didn't choose his team right. So he forgot to have like a business manager with him. So he has product, but he couldn't sell the product. But he succeeded after that to get money, get investor, and now he has a big company here in Norway working in the mining sector. So this is just an example too, because we have here 25 person in the meeting, and we hope out of this 25, maybe we'll get like 20 person, 15 person to be like entrepreneur, the future entrepreneur. And just this is a message from you to them that failing is not a problem. It's just learning process.
Exactly. I mean,
Yep.
we either gain money or experience.
Yes.
That's how I learned to see things. And what I would recommend is try as soon as possible, even while you have your 9 to 5 jobs. Try to do something on the side, developing a business plan, learning some of the things. And this problem you mentioned, like choosing the right team, it's extremely important and very complex. It's extremely complex because we will have the tendency to just hire people who think like us, who are like-minded, or good friends, and in the end, you end up breaking the relationship. Your friendship is gone, and the business also doesn't work. So you have to take it very seriously. Like look at what the person can really contribute, and look for people who are uh, passionate about this. If they and also don't go for the 50-50. Oh, you get 50% of my company. Don't do that because it doesn't work. If you are more passionate about this and you're giving more energy, putting more money, whatever, take more, and that's it. And because at the end of the day, you're expecting someone to do the same level of work that you do, but this person is not with 100% of his heart there, and it's tough. It's complicated. We're talking about business, developing a new business. It means a lot of hours to get it. It's like a marriage, and people divorce here more often than you can imagine.
Yep.
So it's tough.
If you wanna allow me one question more.
Sure.
Yep, good. So actually, you mentioned two things. One in your last comment about business plan, and one in your story about when you was discussing with this insurance company and how this insurance is working, so the market. And actually our next session with our colleagues here next Wednesday will be about the business plan and the market segmentation. So do you think you can let us know a bit what's the importance of a market to analyze your market, in since you have several startup or several companies? Why is the marketing strategy is different from company to company for you? Or do
Yeah.
you think this is an important issue to look
It,
at the
it,
market?
yeah. I mean, I don't know how many of you here are scientists. I know some are professors. And the biggest mistakes we make as scientists and professors is that we assume that people are rational. And you think people buy your product because your product makes sense. So if you can learn one thing from me, I mean, I will send to Joanna one of my books that I wrote recently, the PDF, Joanna, and you can share with everyone. It's about innovative ideas and fraudulent schemes, how to have innovative ideas and not fall in the fraudulent part. But the point is, nobody, believe me, nobody, or maybe like 1%, will buy your product because of logic. Everyone else will buy because of emotion. And it's an emotional decision. Emotion, incredible, as crazy as it may sound. My wheelchair that stands up, it reduces the risk of brain aneurysm. It reduces the risks of chronic wounds. It increases bone density. It makes you live longer, everything. But nobody buys my wheelchair because they do those things. They buy because they can stand up in the middle of the concert and they can see the guys there without looking at the butt of everyone. They buy my wheelchair because they stand up. This guy stood up and he called his wife, come here, give me a kiss. So while I'm standing, so it's a purely emotional thing. So that's why evaluating the market is extremely important. You have to know why people want to buy your product. And you have to know the other questions. Will they really buy, or they just like the idea? Those are two different things. And third, who pays for the product? One of the first products that I brought to market was a spray to close chronic wounds. So chronic wounds, we're talking about wounds that can be this big, and they are open for 10 years or longer, you know, and they stink. They can lead you to lose your leg. It's an ugly thing. It's a super ugly thing. We developed the things. We are healing chronic wounds like in a very fast pace. We thought we'll be billionaires now. Everyone will buy us. So we went to market without doing a very careful market analysis. We thought everyone who has a chronic wound would like to be free from chronic wounds. So the problem was, in the chronic wound field, you don't buy the product for yourself. You don't buy it. You do the treatment in a clinic. The clinic buys the product. And that was our mistake. We were ready to convince the final customer, the guy who has the wound, but those were not the people we're supposed to convince. We're supposed to convince the clinics. And in there, it was a different business to make them buy the product. So we lost. Like the product works, but we failed in the market. I mean, I got letters of people, like there was this elderly who wrote to me and he said, thank you, because finally my grandchildren want to play with me again because I no longer have this ugly wound in my leg. So I got a Christmas card from a man saying, thank you that you gave me the best Christmas of my life. So we got this beautiful letter, but it was never a success story in sales because we looked wrongly to the market. It was our mistake. If we had looked from the beginning, from the perspective of the buyer, and the buyer was the clinic, we would have done differently. So it is, I mean, can we change? Sometimes you can. Sometimes it takes too long, too much energy and money. And so we sold the company to another one, but still they weren't able to do it. And you have to understand too, like, imagine you come to a market, and that's why it's important to do market analysis. I come with one product to a clinic, and I say, could you buy my product? Very good. And people heal after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, instead of 5 months or 6 months or a year. And the clinic will have to do an economic evaluation as well, how much money they are investing now to buy your product, right? They have to do it. So second, they call Johnson & Johnson the next day and say, Johnson & Johnson, there's a startup here selling a new product. They claim and they have some results. Johnson & Johnson can very well say, well, buy the other products. We send ours for free. I know it won't heal it as quickly, but you get this without any cost, you know, as long as you continue being our client in the other field. So I'm just giving you an example, but this can happen. And if you're not able to position yourself in a way that you can enter the market, it can be very complicated. That's why market analysis is something that most of us in the scientific world don't do. I didn't do it. I just thought the idea is cool, let's do it. And I think people will buy, and in the end they didn't, because I didn't understand the market. So that's how important market analysis is, especially for scientists, because there's two things we are horrible at is understanding that people don't make decisions on logic. They do on emotion, and who is actually making it, who is buying, right? Lotta has a question.
Thank you. It's so fascinating to hear your story, and I fully agree with the market analysis. But how would you advise, and what is the kind of best solution to get in touch of kind of your end customers to be able to do this market analysis and get the sense of the kind of industry? So how did you do it, and what would you do kind of now differently?
What we did back then, we bought reports. There are a lot of market reports, and they don't work. They're not good. So unfortunately, I hope there is no one from those companies here that they'll be angry at me. But I mean, it is good to impress investors, right? You show the huge numbers there, but and you know the list of competitors, for example. But the best thing you can do is to talk to people who suffer the problem. What and this is you have to talk to them, and I recommend recording the conversation. You have to interview them. We interview them. We call people. We send emails, and we ask people, wheelchair users, giving the example of wheelchair users, you know, and we talk to them, and we ask what are their problems, and you record, and you later listen again, because you have to try to understand in between the lines, because sometimes they don't even know how to express themselves, what are the problems, and you have to let them talk as much. You have a few questions. Don't make questions just to confirm your assumptions, because that's the next mistake we make, right? As scientists, we have a hypothesis, and we just look for ways to prove our hypothesis. So be very clear, because it's better to learn the hard truth now than after investing a lot of money. So it's better to know now. So I think we did quite well with the wheelchair. With the spray for severe bleeding, with the spray with the severe bleeding, one thing that we made a mistake, like it's very clear, someone is bleeding, he may die any moment. So he would take whatever it's at his disposal. We look, what are the problems of the competition? We talk to the military, we talk to the police officers, we talk to the nurses. And then our mistake was to really understand who pays this. And getting to the US military is very complex. The same is as it's very complex to enter the US hospitals. You get the FDA clearance, you go there, each hospital has an individual committee that will evaluate your things. And these committees meet every 3 months or every 6 months. You have to wait. So what I do, and I highly recommend, is talk to people who have the problem. You know, talk to them, and then talk to the doctor that treat them. You want to know, how do they really purchase? How do they buy? And then collect. It's a tedious but very important work. And I would recommend doing by yourself, in a sense of, you can get some of the students or business partners, someone who understands a little bit of collecting data. Because I also tried, that's the next thing you can do. You just make a link in Google, whatever doc, with some questions that people answer. I did it, and it's very poor, the number of answers you get. My best things were direct interviews. After you talk to the people who suffer and to the doctors, I would recommend, and I did that too, write in LinkedIn to salespeople that left companies that were selling products in your field. Why I'm saying this? Because a lot of them are angry with their previous company, so they will tell everything. You know, you talk to them, you ask questions, they will say why they left, and they will say what were the problems, and you understand how complex it is to sell the product. So, and you understand, but there is no other way, Lotte, around. I would say the best thing is interviewing people, getting to know, because the normal thing you get is, how many people need a wheelchair? 1% of the population. So, and you think, wow, that's huge, right? But how many of them can really buy my wheelchair? So, and how many of them want to buy a wheelchair, to change their wheelchair? You know, all those things. And you have to you don't have to talk to 1 million people, but you have to, and if you understand a little bit of statistics, that helps to create a group, a sample size that helps you to understand. Is it easy? No, it is not. It takes time, but it's very important. And I wouldn't trust, like, I mean, there are people you can hire, there are companies that can do it for you, but they're expensive. So of course, if you have the money, that's great. But if not, I would do by yourself. Talk, I mean, believe me or not, go to LinkedIn. If you write to one of those people who used to work, let's suppose you have developed something, or you have created something against diabetes. Go to LinkedIn, look to who work for Novo Nordisk, this famous Danish company, and talk to them and say, look, I'm coming up with a new idea and I want to understand a little bit of the market. Would you have like half an hour to talk? They would be open to talk because they see their network expand and they see an opportunity maybe to work with you later. You know, that's the thing I would recommend. You would gain so much information there, valuable information, that you can compare with the other data and see if it's really a good idea.
Thank you.
I think we have a question in the chat from Anastasia. I can read for you if it is easier, Rivelino. It says, it is possible to find like-minded people through LinkedIn for the startup stuff, or it's better to hang out with as many people as possible to get first friends and then propose them to work together?
Well, Anastasia, if you are in an environment that you can find these people, then it's great to have one-to-one contact, right? But LinkedIn is a great place. LinkedIn is a great place. There is another website, I think it's called F6S, if I'm not mistaken. F for Friedrich, number 6, and S as in Sandra. I mean, there are probably many different ones. It's a platform where like-minded entrepreneurs try to meet. So they kind of go there and say, I'm starting this company, who has experience with this? But I would at least talk a few times before you get into an agreement. Because, I mean, you wouldn't marry someone just because you met in Tinder. You know, you better get to know a little bit, because it's like a marriage. And if it's a lot more complicated to get divorced, I would say, because it is tough. Get to know. You better get to know the person, you know, and look at because you never know. Maybe the person is the type of, is not willing to work extra hours. And I mean, I don't know. Each one has a different experience. So I have good experience with people who were fresh from the university, just coming out, had no experience in business. We hired the person, we gave the training, the person did amazingly well. We had other people who came and stole the company, like stole things from the company, gave us like, and it was a super famous professional. The guy, we found out, was a criminal. So, you know, it is very complex. And if you have a suspicion of anything, you have this gut feeling, investigate. Because sometimes your gut feeling is right, and you better take a look. So Tamer, I think you raised your hand again.
Yep, actually, it's a bit follow-up of the previous comment about the partners. But here I am speaking not partners as a people, as a person, like a friend that you hire in your company or your startup, if you would like. But I speak about partners like institutes. If you are doing research, like for example, I know there is some colleagues here who are working with high capacity battery things. So if you would like to do research like this, or you would like to start working on a startup like this, for example, that need more than one partner, do you think how we can approach companies or universities in order to help us in something like this?
What I would say, and this has to be, I don't know. I mean, it's easier for a company to approach university and get a yes than the other way around. And I will tell you why. At the industry, we have the tendency to think universities are extremely slow and messed up, like disorganized. There is no documentation, and especially in the medical field where documentation is extremely important. We say in the medical field, if it's not written, it did not happen. And we in the medical field, we have to give evidence that all the process of the development of the product was carefully looked at. There was a design process that was followed. So we suffer a lot. However, if you come with a professional mind, if you approach an industry, and it doesn't matter which one, it can be a company, it can be a big one like Johnson & Johnson, a startup. If you come with a clear message, like showing that you are very professional, they will be more open, to discuss. And I think each one should focus on what they do the best. Like companies are very good in bringing products to market. Universities are very good in developing, inventing things, because you guys have the freedom to think, while companies are more strict. Startups are a lot more flexible to change course, while like big companies, they will have a hard time. Any change has to go through different layers, and you have to talk to this people and that committee. While a startup, you meet everyone at any moment. So, but I would, it is hard to say, I will give an example. In my case, in my first company in Germany, where we invented a catheter for urology, we invented a biodegradable urethral stent. And we were in the development phase. We just finished the prototype. We wrote to the two biggest urological companies in the world, the US company, they were US companies. So we wrote to the number 1 and to the number 2 at the same time, wrote the same email. Look, we invented this urological catheter. It's biodegradable. You don't have to remove anymore. Blah, blah, blah. Would you be interested? Both of them invited us for a meeting. So we flew to the US the same week. We met the number 1, we met the number 2. They even asked us, are you meeting the other one? This is because they knew we wouldn't be right. And in the end, they both made an offer, and we picked number 2. So why? The decision was number 2 was eager to become number 1, right? And our decision back then was, the idea behind was, we think those guys are fighting harder to get the first place than the other one has products that they have to make sure that they sell their products, right? And it's harder for them to make radical shifts or radical changes. So that's how we made a decision. But again, maybe we would be more successful with the other one. But again, you have to have a logic behind your decisions, and discuss in the team, and how you're going to approach companies or universities and what do they have to offer. And in our particular field, speed is extremely important. You talk to someone and they say, okay, we will have a meeting 6 months to discuss what to do, then man, just quit and go somewhere else. I mean, the other thing you can also do, and I highly recommend doing this, when you do an agreement with, for example, you from the university, you develop something, you are offering this to a company, or a company came to ask this product. Put in the agreement that if they are not able, for example, to bring the product to market in the next year or 2, you take back the technology. Or if they are not able to sell as many pieces, I don't know, because you should have the rights to bring it back, because sometimes they just get lazy, or maybe one of the other products is very successful. They put the focus there. They just put you on the fridge, and you are like being cold in the cold there, and nothing is moving because the company has other priorities, and you have to think about that. So I would go this way, because at the end of the day, you have to think about yourself. It's about your company or your lab or your university that has to succeed as well. So that's what I would recommend before picking up a company, to go into the details, like set up a plan. How many months do you think we would be finished with this? I think that would be my way of looking at this potential partnership with whatever company or university.
Thank you, Rivelino. I don't know if there is any additional question for Rivelino. I don't think so. So I think it's time. So we finished the first workshop on the Grill the Leaders. So I would like to thank you again, Rivelino, for your participation and your insights on all the entrepreneurial world. Very valuable. And I think Tamar is something to say. Yes, go
No,
ahead.
just I would like to thank all of you for this session. And maybe once you finish the closing, I get like 1 minute to say like a small announcement, like summarize what we heard today and link it to the next session.
Yes. Yes, so I'm ready to finish. So thank you again, Rivelino, for all the insights, and thank you everyone for being here today. And we'll see you on the next Grill the Leader workshops. So go ahead, Tamar, with the link. Yeah.
So first of all, I would like to thank Riolo a lot for this very interesting session. It's really grilling our leadership. And actually, if I summarize this session, actually it has a lot of important point. One of them is failing is not a problem. It's like you will get either experience or you will get money if you will go for that. Second thing is that one of the most important things is to choose the right partner, the right colleagues who are working with you at the startup, but also you try to focus on who will buy the product from you. So you need to do sort of market analysis. You need to do like customer development, and this is actually our next Wednesday target. So next Wednesday on around 5 o'clock afternoon. Central European time, we will have our second session, and we are focusing mainly on this customer development, market analysis, how you can start to develop your idea and try to go to the market and analyze it. So I hope all of our colleagues here started to think a bit. I already uploaded and sent to you the business plan or the business canvas. So you can start to write like few things about your customer. Is it, for example, in our case today, is it the patient or is the hospital, or who exactly will buy the product from you? And again, think in a way that really who will buy, who will pay the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very good summary.
Yep.
What I could contribute, and just to finish with the last few words, sometimes as an example, people willing, for example, if you know that your insurance will pay for medication, you have a hard time to give the money out of pocket. While cosmetic companies have no problems to sell their cosmetics, like I know this little 1 or 2 milliliter product to make the eyelashes to grow faster or longer. It's like 100-something euros, and people pay, and they're not expecting their health insurance to pay for it, right? Because it's not a medication. But what I wanted to say is, sometimes you get stuck with those things because people will not buy because it's a medication, they expect the health insurance to pay. But if it would be a cosmetic, they would pay because they're not expecting the health insurance to pay. So again, pay attention to emotional decision, because at the end of the day, that's how people will buy. Unfortunately, you have to learn this, and you can be the most hardcore scientist ever. By the end of the day, you cry when you see the movie, you feel emotional when you listen to the song, and that's what drives you to make a decision. There is even a study showing that without emotions, you don't make a decision. So that's very crazy. So good luck, and I'll send my book to Joanna. Joanna can hand over to you guys, and I hope you can learn a little bit more there. And I'm telling you one thing to you, having the idea is the easiest part. Developing is a lot harder. Selling is a nightmare. It's very fast, because that's the hardest part. Okay, good luck to all of you.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
we meet each other.
Thank you again, Rivelino. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.